Everything we've done has been based on like my instinct. It wasn't the point of the group, and it never has been and never will be, to be successful. But the point of the group has always been so that I can do what I want. And people just like that.
Do you get a sense of a lot of people watching what you're doing next? I'm just wondering if you ever pined for the cozy days of being that cult band again.
Don't make any difference to me at all. It really doesn't. I'm not aware of it. Up until, in fact, the only way I'm aware of it is actually in a very helpful way. It's when I'm singing in the studio. I feel really enervated by the fact that I think there are people in the world that want to hear me sing. I mean, it really does help. It's like, in the old days, that was really difficult because I felt like no one wants to hear this, you know. I had a lot of like crises of confidence when I was younger. It's hard to believe, but because I was always struggling against the idea of like, well, why am I bothering to do this if no one, like, you know, the first 3 albums no one bought, no one used to come and see us play very much. So I used to think, what's the point? You know, it's like us against the world. That was the constant struggle of like, you know, the battle to make people listen, and then the idea of like, well, why make them listen? You know, whereas now I think, well, it's really gratifying that there is an audience there that's interested in what I'm going to do and what The Cure do. It was the reason why the group started, really, was that I get really affected by music, like what I listen to, and when I was just being bombarded by awful music just from all around me. When I was about sort of 14 or 15, I just thought I wanted to do something about it, and it's always been that. So I've always wanted the group to play music that I enjoy, and as my tastes have changed over the years, our style of music's changed, and it's not really taken into consideration what anyone else thinks about the group. So it is a very selfish attitude, but at the same time, I think people have over the years have respected that. They actually like the idea that we do what we want. There's a limit beyond which we'd never appeal, which is something that we accepted when we started. I mean, we were never massively popular, but it doesn't really make any difference. And I can think of nothing. I mean, I can think of something worse, but there's very few things I can think of that would be worse than spending your life trying to sell a lot of records in Canada or America. Our attitude has always stayed the same. It's like a total disregard for what other people do and what other people think. Sort of grown up with us, and another lot has moved in place of them, they're sort of the same age, like 16 and 17.
So the new young group is the one that's screaming?
Yeah, because they seem to be more girl than boy, whereas we used to be a much more sort of boy. They were the same audience, you'd end up being something horrible like Supertramp or something like that.
Right.
I mean, Duran Duran would probably have housewives screaming at them in 10 years' time. Well, I mean, they won't, because they'd already finished, but no, I mean, we made a decision that we should change our audience. After Pornography and we released Let's Go to Bed, we knew that we'd be like getting in a new batch of people, but I mean, it's funny, it keeps the whole thing more up, really, for us, more interesting. We've been very fortunate. I mean, but again, it's sort of a fortune, but it's only to be expected, I think, from as soon as we started making records like 17 Seconds and Faith, that if people like that, if they're going to be bothered to try and, I suppose, get inside that kind of music, it does forge a bond between the listener and the performer, much more so than if you're just making music that has no kind of emotional depth. Because, I mean, if we're sort of opening up to people, then you expect them to sort of come towards you. It's easy to sing about. I mean, some songs that we've done, and there is a side to The Cure which is very blasé, very banal and very flippant. And but that's just really now to
try and balance up the sort of the harder sides of what we do. A few years ago, we didn't have that kind of pop side. It completely disappeared, and we became a very difficult group, I think. But no, I mean, we're very aware of how devoted our audience is.
I kissed you in the water, made you dry lips in. I saw you look like a Japanese baby. In an instant, I remember everything. We slip through the streets while everyone's getting bigger and sneaker and wider and brighter. We bite and scratch and scream all night. Let's go and throw all the songs we know into the sea. You and me, all these years and no one heard. I'll show you in spring, it's such a true thing. We miss you. Kiss the love cats.
Right from the start, we didn't really sign contracts. We didn't have managers. We still haven't got a manager. We've never had a management contract. Just things because I always felt that if it was what I wanted to do and if I was enjoying it, I should be able to do it without the help of other people. And I mean, whoever's in the group at the time always like joins in on that sort of level. Everything's divided equally. Everything works on an equal level. But ultimately, I sort of have the final say, and that's like with regards to everyone, whether it be the record company or whoever.
Boys don't cry. I would tell you that I loved you if I thought that you would stay. But I know that it's no use and you've already gone away. Misjudged your limit, I pushed you too far. I took it for granted, I thought that you needed me more.
I just think they're great. I don't know.
Why? Is it the music, the image?
Yeah,
Their lyrics, absolutely. Robert Smith writes the most beautiful songs.
He's gorgeous. Just everything about him. The music, the words.
It's very sexy.
There was nothing in the world that I ever wanted more than to feel you deep in my heart.
How strong is the persona of Robert Smith? Because for the last 6 months, every time that you see some little girl with a funny haircut, she says, "When's Robert Smith coming in?" She doesn't say, "When is The Cure coming in?" It's, "When's Robert Smith coming in?"
I suppose it's just sort of developed over the years that I've become like a focal point. I mean, it's not something that we try and play on, but I mean, the others encourage it because it means that they can stay in bed when I have to come and do this.
Did it surprise you in the 80s where you achieved this pin-up status without marketing, without seeking it out, without playing into it? It just kind of happened.
That's why, though.
Did it surprise you then when you see all these other sort of pin-ups and then there's Robert Smith?
It's difficult actually thinking back when I sort of like changed direction after Pornography and Simon left the band. And I got very fed up with being a kind of a dark icon, I suppose. I was aware for the first time with Pornography that people were expecting me to keep pushing it, and so I thought I would have some fun. I think the balancing act that went on with me trying to like was helped by the fact that I played in the Banshees for a year and a half, and so I was still able to kind of be part of a kind of like, not underground, but like a darker scene. So at the same time, it was like, so it was. I think I was perceived as subverting rather than like embracing, which helped looking back. At the time, I was very blissfully unaware of that because I was out of my head most of the time.
Robert's head got a bit scrambled after being in The Cure and the Banshees.
Speaking of Robert Smith, once again.
Why?
Shall we move on?
Yes, why not?
Why was she so mean like that?
Well, there's lots of reasons, but they're not worth talking about, really. I prefer being in The Cure to being in the Banshees.
Can you
If she prefers being in the Banshees to being in The Cure, that's fine, but she doesn't know the other side of it, you see, so she doesn't really know what she's missing. I did.
Can you describe just as succinctly as possible, I don't want to linger on it, but I just wanted to get some kind of remark about what it was like playing with them? Was it the bleakest thing in the world?
No, it was, I mean, it was good fun. But I think that the element of humour was introduced with me being in the group.
It was good fun being with the Benchies, you know, it's like for about a year and a half. But it just got to the point when I thought I'd rather be back, you know, doing the Cure stuff. No, I think it also helped because we'd made 4 albums before we started to get commercially successful. I mean, I'd been around the world a couple of times, and I'd lugged my own equipment in and out of clubs, and I'd done everything. Not that I'd paid my dues, but like we had seen a lot of things, you know, and we'd experienced a lot of things on different levels. So when success started to come, it wasn't like, oh, you know, this is what we've been working towards. Because in fact, it never was. It was never the idea that I would be in a successful band. So, I mean, I used to find it kind of weird, I suppose, when I started to appear on magazine covers, but I kind of accepted it because it was part of what I was doing. I didn't feel really happy that I was on the front of magazines, nor did I feel really kind of disturbed by it. I just thought, well, that's what happens when you start to get popular. So I think it was much more difficult when people started to try and look like me, which happened sort of like in the mid-'80s. That was the only time I felt like I was losing my grasp on reality. It's like, it did get a bit strange.
How is it for you when here are all these Robert Smith lookalikes down there, right in the front of the stage looking back at you?
I've got such short sight, I very rarely see any of them. I just don't feel that comfortable about being stared at so much anymore. You know, it's just, it gets to me. I mean, we've only reached like a very moderate level of success compared to, you know, other people who are wildly successful, but I think that a lot of them want to be successful. And I never really imagined that we'd get to this point. And we've sort of stepped past an imaginary line beyond which I don't really feel comfortable. Like playing Giant Stadium last week in New York was awful. It's a really, really awful experience, and just being stared at so much. It's this sort of I mean, it's always been unnatural. I mean, doing this is very unnatural, but I've been able to cope with it a lot better, and I just find it's impinging on my personal life too much. The addictive nature of like that kind of the sense of being stared at and the adulation it is. I mean, it does feed your vanity to an enormous degree, and sometimes it's really good fun, you know, and it'd be stupid and dishonest to deny it. But it can reach a point when, if you lose sight of the actual reason why you're on stage and why you're performing to people, the whole thing just becomes very hollow. And I think that's what happens to too many people. I wouldn't really like it to happen to us after all the things that we've done. It would take away from things. 6 or 87 on the back of the Stand on the Beach album, and I suddenly realised that we'd become a really kind of popular band, and that was the only time I've ever struggled, I think, to cope with that kind of attention. The rest of the time you just sort of, it's a joke most of the time. Yeah, that's why I cut my hair.
Today I got so old I felt like I could die. Yesterday I got so old it made me want to cry. Go on, just walk away. Go on, your choices stay. Go on and disappear. Go on away from here.
We are definitely better than the average group that plays live. It's without question, because we see other groups play live and they're just not as good as us. It's not, I mean, there are groups that are as good as us that I've seen play, but I mean, it's not being belligerent about it or being, you know, like big-headed even. I mean, if we didn't think that we were good, then we wouldn't play. I don't mind thinking that we're the best group in the world. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't expect people to believe me, but what else am I going to say? I think as long as the group keeps going, we should play concerts, however infrequently, because you sort of, it just makes it more complete. It's more satisfying.
Movement in the corner of the room, and there is nothing I can do. I realize it's right. Spider-Man is having me for dinner tonight.
It's such a good feeling when it gets to that kind of level. You can actually, you'll look up and you'll see all these people and you'll think, oh, they're all listening to what we're doing, and it can be, you know, it's like a very weird sort of feeling, and isn't that strange to understand why it's a good feeling and why you want to sort of like have that feeling again? But at the same time, I have to keep in my mind that it's unnatural. The whole thing is very unnatural because that has never come naturally to me. I'm much more aware of how hideous we look. So we tend to keep our heads down more when we play in daylight.
So sick, I wish I'd stay asleep today. I never thought this day would end. I never thought tonight would ever be this close to me.
We've become popular through default in a weird way. Just over the years, what's happened is we've managed to retain, I think, our audience, like our old audience, and just add to it. Whereas, again, a lot of groups swap their audience. If they want to be successful, they sort of trade one in for another. But I've never really bothered. I'm surprised at how popular we've become in North America.
Explain it yourself.
Yeah, I really am. But just because of what I look at that is popular, I see very little that I can feel any empathy with or anything that I actually enjoy. So obviously, if we become successful, I wonder why. The Cure is a band. It always has been, isn't it? I mean, even though I've written, 90% of the stuff, who's in the band really determines like what the sound is like and how things get done. And although there's been a band called The Cure over like 20-something years now, there's for me there've been like 5 pretty distinct bands called The Cure. It isn't one band. I haven't been in one band. I've been in 5 different bands that all had the same name. That's the way I look at it. Everyone that's been in the band, I think that they've had their own kind of drives and ambitions, and sometimes it kind of just falls out of step with what the band is. It's a very democratic process when we're working together, but if I want to drag the group somewhere, everyone has the choice to either go that way or not.
It takes more than musicianship, I would think. It takes a state of mind to be in this group.
Yeah, it's well, from my point, when I joined, it was pretty nerve-wracking, the thought of joining The Cure, because you have this mental picture that I'm sure Jason probably had as well, of this very sombre, very severe group of people. But it's not like that, is it?
It's very good, very funny jokes.
Some of the time.
It's open time down on Fascination Street, so let's cut the conversation and get out for a bit.
It's an attitude, and the important thing about The Cure has always been, if you fit in with that attitude, just like that outlook, what you want from being in a group. That's why Jason's here. It's like, and people come and go. I mean, like in like nearly 20 years, people's like attitude and their life, or what they want from life, or what they want from the group they're in, is going to change. That's why people come and go. It's really like a big argument and like can't live with you. That kind of people just come and go according to that, and the attitude or the direction The Cure wants to follow just has basically been the same.
Why do you think people return to The Cure?
Because it's a good place to be. It's a fun group to be in. It's the music's good. It's just a really nice. It's like a family. It's like, yeah, that's a good analogy. It's like you can get fed up with being around your family if you're there too much, and but it's nice to come back to them.
But you love them.
Oh yeah, you love them.
I left for 18 months after an argument, but then I came back and been there ever since.
Now, there's a bit, the Cure's history is a bit of a revolving door. So what keeps people coming back?
God, without seeming horrible, I hope it's the consistency of the music, and like there's always sort of an ongoing friendship as well.
Yeah. So even when the band's not touring together or not recording an album, you all still keep in touch. You're all friends.
Yeah.
Party together.
I wouldn't say we partied together. Not anymore.
Party last night though.
I didn't
No?
go. No.
Oh.
No. I've mended my ways.
The prerequisite of being in the group and staying in it really is just that you get on with everyone else and you sort of like what we're doing. There's never been any sense of you're in the group, so you're in the group. You have to sort of want to be, and you have to enjoy it and contribute something as well. And generally, people that have been in the group know when they're no longer fitting in, and it always seems to be usually seems to be a very easy kind of falling away. I don't know. Maybe it'll be me next.
Disintegration. Is there a theme to this record?
The whole project was triggered by me writing the words to the song Disintegration about last April, around the time of my 29th birthday last year. And it was just about the sense of falling apart that I can't ever seem to shake off. That I think it's true for everyone, really. That sort of triggered off a whole sort of sudden blurge of words over about a 2-month period, and I just wanted the group, if we were going to do something else after the Kiss Me album, I knew that I wanted us to do something that had a bit of intensity to it, so that I could spend some time getting back into things that we used to do a few years ago, with a bit more bite to them, rather than just sort of pop stuff. Just the notion of turning 30. It's kind of a paradox, I think, but you're forced into accepting age the older you get. But I still try and sort of fight against it. I mean, against the sort of the mental decline and the physical decline that comes with age. That sort of your loss of a sense of wonder at things. And that, I mean, having nephews and nieces, it's brought home ever more frequently that how old I'm getting. Just like inside my head. I've not been fascinated by things I used to think were really fascinating, and it's just a bit worrying. It's a bit sad. So I try and fight against it by doing something, like writing songs. I don't know why, but you sort of hit certain ages and you sort of reevaluate like what you're doing, what you're going to do. So I think it's the same for everyone. It just comes out in different ways. Some people get divorced, some people get married, some people write songs. I mean, there's a million different ways of sort of coping with it, and. I don't know, it's sort of been driven home to me gradually, how old I'm getting. Whenever I'm alone with you make me feel like I am home again. Whenever I'm alone with you make me feel like I am whole again.
Love Song sounds like perhaps the most traditional thing that you've ever written. Are you proud of it for that reason?
Yeah, it was because me and Mary got married last year and I couldn't think what to give her for a wedding present, so I wrote her that song. It's cheap and cheerful. After Disintegration, which was both commercially and fan-wise was like a really popular album, a successful album on every level, like artistic and commercial, I should say. The next thing we did was the Mixed Up album, which was just like, which was hated by critics and fans, and I knew it would be, but it didn't stop me doing it. So but I didn't do it because I thought it would upset people. It's just I'm kind of like unaware. Up until the point when I'm aware, but I don't take very much notice. I have this like nagging voice saying, "They're not going to like this."
do to keep your curiosity alive?
I spend a lot of time with my nephews and nieces, and it's really healthy. I wouldn't like the idea of being a father, I don't think, because the responsibility side of it creeps in, but it's good being an uncle, so I can be very offhand with them, and I never have to tell them off. I teach them how to do all the bad things, you know, and their mums and dads tell them that they shouldn't be doing that.
Easy to say like we planned this, like, but you couldn't go into anything being like that contrived and say like, well, we are the Cure and the Cure represents this, so that, you know, the Cure always will represent whatever we're doing at the time, and like you say, it does ultimately develop an image, and that's what you have, but it will always change and become what we are.
I mean, we are a mainstream band, and yet the mainstream considers us to be like a cult alternative band. Cult alternative people consider us to be a mainstream band. I think we are like a mainstream band, but we're just kind of slightly off sometimes, you know. And not through willfully trying to be weird, but just kind of like because we just do what we want, so we don't stick, you know, so we're not formulaic. So there is still like an element of you're never quite sure.
Just like silver, smooth as a snake. Can't swallow, I'm just such a shame. And I just know this is a big mistake. Yeah, but if it's gone.
That part of the process is very natural. I don't think I'll ever have like a block on writing music, because it's something that I just find very, very natural. When I sit down at a piano or I pick up a guitar, if I'm in the mood, I kind of just like think of something, and I never analyse that. I never think like, is this going to work? Because it either works or it doesn't, and that's the thing about music. You can't work on it too much. The idea is either there and it's good, and then you kind of enhance it, or it isn't there. And the problem I think with like most people who make records is they haven't got the ideas there in the first place. So it doesn't matter how much gloss you put on it, you know. You're kind of like shining coal. It just never works. I honestly don't remember writing a lot of the words over the years. There's about 75% of them come when I'm in some kind of altered state, either, you know, through self-induced or I'm half asleep, or, you know, and they're usually just there. I sort of find bits of paper in my pocket or on a bus or, you know, at home under my pillow and things. It's very rare that I actually sit down and think, right, I'll write a song, I'll get this out of me. It is hard work for me actually writing words that I'm happy with. It's a mixture of kind of my own limitations and also a dreadful sense of perfectionism. There very rarely is a song ever written in one go either. I usually piece 2 or 3 bits of writing together so that it doesn't mean just one thing. Which is where a lot of the obscurities come from over the years. I mean, looking back, I find it difficult to decipher some of the things that I've written. Yeah, it's a very haphazard process until I get to the moment where I have to sing. And it's not, up until that moment, I'm never really sure about how the song's going to happen. And then I do the vocal, and then I start to analyse it, and I start to think. Sometimes it works, first time, like about once every 100 songs.
The sun is up, I'm so happy I could scream. And there's nowhere else in the world I'd rather be. But here with you, it's perfect. It's all I ever wanted. Oh, I almost can't believe that it's for real.
And the band is involved like hugely, but I do get left on my own a lot. I don't care what the others say. It's like, I mean, I'm there every minute of the day, and they kind of like put in an appearance every other day.
Robert does like to build up layers of sounds, shall we say. He never stops. Right up until the mix, he's always adding little bits in. It starts off, we start off saying, okay, let's keep this one really sparse. And then by the end of it, it's, you know, it's got 20 layers of sounds on it. But that's, he never really wants to let go of the song.
But they get to live lives outside of work when we're doing an album, and I don't. Because there's always something. It's not, because I have to, I mean, I don't have to, but I like being involved from the moment it starts to the moment it's finished.
Never guessed it got this good. Wondered if it ever would. Really didn't think it could. Do it some more, I know we should.
We've still got it. I mean, it's mainly in the British press, and it kind of filters out from there. And it's really a laziness that, when this came out, one of the reviews, I think, Melody Maker, in fact, and the NME, was still quintessentially a goth band. You know, I think, for fuck's sake, come on. But I like what we do to have, you know, if people are bothered to kind of like go a step further, then there is something there to find. It's like, but I don't have this like pretentious, kind of precious notion of what I do as being art. But I mean, if we do something, I want it to kind of like to excite people, and for there to be something there if they want to go and look for it. But if they don't, then it should also kind of work on a very simplistic level, which is, I think, probably the reason why we've succeeded is because there are tunes, is what I'm saying.
What is it about The Cure that makes you a fan then?
I like the way Robert Smith plays guitar.
See, no one talks about his guitar playing ever.
He's great.
But all my guitars I buy because of what they look like, not because of how they sound.
Sweet colours of the snakes I'm seeing. Lime green and tangerine. The sickly sweet colours of the devil in my dreams.
I really do think there's the songs, because without the songs, everything else would just fall apart. The attitude, and you know, we do what we want. It becomes a big deal. No one liked the songs. It wouldn't really, you know, I wouldn't be sitting here talking. It wouldn't make any sense. But I think there is a side to it. It isn't just the songs. There is a side to it that's the people that I talk to that like the group are often just like the idea of a group like The Cure being there, because it shows that you can do things in your own way, and we kind of represent, you know, just like saying, well, you don't have to do it that way. You can do it your own way and still be successful. And it's it wasn't the point of the group, and it never has been and never will be, to be successful. But the point of the group has always been so that I can do what I want. And people just like that, you know, it's kind of... But people who are fans of the group like it, people who don't like it are like journalists who resent the fact that I'm able to do what I want, and other people like it. I think there's also, in a strange way, people want us to continue to exist, which is sort of worrying, because they think if we stop, we're kind of like the last band of our generation. It kind of... It's like severing the only tie left with, you know, like that period of time. So a lot of our older fans like us just to keep going at all costs, you know. And I think
there's an awful lot of pressure.
Yeah, although I mean, that isn't why I keep going.
Hello? Are you still there? Hello? Hello, are you still there? Much too late. Sorry, wrong number.
I'm sorry, is the wrong number?
Yeah, sorry, wrong number.
Looking back at the whole career of The Cure, I think it can be surmised in one word, and that's to borrow an album title, faith. Because you've done it your way this whole time. You've never compromised, you've never followed trends.
Yeah, I think that we've always done just things that we wanted to do, and it's turned out right.
It's a lot easier
Simple,
said,
really, isn't it?
It's a lot easier said than done, though, isn't it?
Yeah, but they're generally it's just like everything we do is based on instinct, and it's like waking up in the morning and wanting to be in The Cure is like the most important thing.
No, I won't do it again. Doesn't make any sense. If it can't be like before, I've got to let
Bloodflowers. I've never heard you speak so proudly of a record before.
I think the difference with Bloodflowers is that I not only feel that it's good at this moment and that it reflects how, you know, it's exactly how I wanted it to be. I felt as we were making it that it was going to be an album that would be remembered in the same way as Disintegration has been remembered. Like 10 years on from Disintegration, fans still refer to it as like it's like a touchstone album. And as we were completing the songs on Bloodflowers, I felt the same way as I felt about Disintegration. That it was kind of a, you know, an archetypal album rather than just like a good album.
I get too scared to jump if I wait too long, but maybe someday.
The songs were written in a very short space of time. 8 of the 9 songs were written in a space of like less than a month. And I knew what I wanted from the album, so I think is why it's different to the last couple that we've made, which have been much more kind of sprawling, you know, like dysfunctional sort of records. I had a very clear idea. I was looking back when I turned 39. I was heading towards being 40, and I thought I should write about how I felt about becoming a 40-year-old. I was worried at the same time that it would be introspective to the point of being boring, because I was thinking like I did this 10 years ago with Disintegration. But as I started writing and I was trying to complement what I was writing lyrically with what I was doing musically, I realised that there was a totally different mood, and in fact that I am a totally different person than I was when I was 30.
Side by side in silence, they pass away the day. So comfortable, so habitual, and so nothing left to say.
When you turned 30, you were freaked out, but when you turned 40, you were fine with it?
When I was younger, when I was really, you know, like in my teens, I invested a lot of negative things into like the idea of becoming 30 was old. Yeah. And I thought, I hope I get everything done before I turn 30, because that's it, you know, no one does anything good after 30. I mean, I knew in the back of my mind that it was rubbish, because my favourite, like, the true great composers of classical music, like, and some, you know, the greatest works of literature are often written by people who are past 30. But I thought in the idiom that I was working, I thought, this is it, I've got to get it all done by 30. 40 didn't really mean as much, because I never thought I'd get to 40. So it was kind of, it was a relief more than anything to get to 40. I think also the 10 years between 30 and 40, I have just had a much better time. You know, from being a 20-year-old to a 30-year-old, it was as I'm sure it is for everyone, it's like just more kind of traumatic. And I never thought I would get anything done. I was already frustrated by everything, and I never quite felt that what I did was good. And, you know, there was that sense of like, you know, never quite getting it right. Whereas I think with Disintegration, I suddenly thought I've made a really, really good album, and it actually freed me up to be a little bit more kind of like relaxed about myself, I think.
Side by side in silence, his thoughts echo round. He looks up at the sky, yeah. She looks down at the ground. She stares down at the ground.
You always thought you were going to die young.
I tried very hard at one stage. It was partly me, and it was partly to do with like what the Cure began to represent, and partly to do with like what people wanted. You know, it's like people like the idea of someone like me dying young, because it means you can't go on and embarrass not only yourself but like everyone that's invested a lot of emotion and trust in you. But for a couple of years, you know, like again, as I'm sure with a lot of people, I, along with Simon, you know, just had an idea that we probably wouldn't live to be old men. That's changed though. You know, I had a lot of fun, I think, doing it, even though at the time it wasn't very much fun. I mean, around this, I'm talking about like around the time of Pornography, and that sort of time when we were like 21, 22 years old. But I mean, I'm sure, I mean, talking to my own nephews who are approaching that age, you just feeling vulnerable and you kind of like that. I was glad that I actually did something with it though, rather than just went on benders and just like, and then woke up with, you know, feeling really bad. At least we made a couple of albums out of it. But I think since then that I think it's also just like experience. It's like the you know, seeing other people around you dying young, which I've had the unfortunate experience a couple of times. it takes the gloss off it. You know, there's no glamour in Dying Young. There really isn't. It's just not, you know, it's not that good.
I know we have to go. I realize we only get to stay so long. Always have to go back to realize where we belong.
Was there a mood that this was going to be the end in the studio? With the last Cure record?
Yeah, I mean, there is still an undercurrent within the band. They would be very shocked if we made another album. They expect me to be serious this time. There's a part of me that really wants it to end with Bloodflowers because it's just a perfect way to end, and so few groups end while they're good. You know, most groups just kind of like fade away, and like no one wants to see them, so they go and say like, well, we always wanted to go back to playing clubs because it's where we feel most comfortable. And you think like, hello, it's not true. It's so it would be nice, I think, just to leave it as something that I could be proud of, you know, and just not to kind of sully it with another album which would probably not live up to people's expectations. But there's another part of me which thinks like this, I didn't have any idea that this band could be as good as it's been making this album and also on this tour. So I sort of feel maybe I'm being a bit premature, you know. I mean, there's like, I still think when we're good, we're really good. So why stop? But I think it's really up to what happens next, because I'm doing something on my own. I think it's like how that turns out will determine like what the Cure do. I would like to leave it in a positive. I'd like to walk away from it while it's still kind of like something that I was proud of.
I know we have to go. I realize always have to say goodbye.
If I feel like liberated in any way and I feel like I'm enjoying it more, then I'll continue to do things on my own. If I don't enjoy the idea of like bringing people in and having to make all the decisions on my own without any kind of like backup, I'd go back to being in a band again. But I mean, they'll probably end up playing on my record anyway. Yeah, we're all kind of getting comfortable with it. Me most of all, and I promised myself, the only thing about turning 40 was I promised myself when I was 30 that if I ever got to 40 I would try and do something else, and I'm now 41 and I haven't done it yet. So everything we've done has been based on like my instinct, and I just feel I should try something else outside of this environment. There are any misconceptions about me that I worry about because they're all in the general media, and it's just to be expected. I don't think that the people who are into the band, or anyone who calls himself a Cure fan, I think has a pretty good idea of what I'm like by now. They must have. It's just there, you know. It's like I can't have done all this for so long and people not know something about what I'm like, which isn't really the point of why I'm doing it. Although it partly is, I suppose, because otherwise I wouldn't bother. But the endless misconceptions in the mainstream media, I kind of gave up on a long time ago. Because I suppose the only one that really gets me is that I'm like I am in the songs all the time, which I'm obviously not. You know, I don't live a life that's, you know, I'm not a 19th century romantic poet. When I meet people, they want me to kind of like be wandering about, you know, holding a candle with a book, you know, Baudelaire in the other hand, and mist around my feet, and they sort of think, oh no, you know, it's not like that at all, and get very disappointed. But I've never ever built that out myself. I'm not responsible for that character that's been developed. The one that I've engendered is like in the videos. It's like an idiot. It's just that there's a part of me needs to be someone and do something in the Cure, and has done for a long time. But my everyday life is pretty banal. You know?
But you are happy.
I have got happier as each year has gone by, yeah, which again is something that shouldn't really happen. So I'm waiting for the big fall. It's got to come sooner or later.